So we should be live or right about now. So welcome, Jennifer. Thank you
How
so
are
much.
you?
I'm awesome. Thank you. But thank you so much for coming on and let's have a chat um, about you and your business and all sorts of everything, of course. The juicy bits, we'll leave nothing out. But what I wanted to kind of just say is like how to feel so you can heal. That was kind of a fascinating concept to me. But before we dig into that, so can you tell me a little bit about you and how you've come to be where you are now? And I know that that could be a broad spectrum, a bit of a kind of a I was and where you are now. That'd be awesome to share with
Yeah.
us.
That first of all, Carmel, thank you so much. Our connection was so synchronistic, and since our first connection, it's been a series of synchronicities, and I truly love that. For myself anyway, I call synchronicity the language of my higher self. So
Right.
I really trust and am guided by, all of those random, not random things that happen. So I'm so excited to be here chatting with you. Yes, for those that don't know me, my name is Jennifer Forster, and that's such a loaded and interesting question. How did I get to be here? Well,
Oh,
I
let
think
me tell you.
I think, look, the best place to start today would be to perhaps share who I help, because it's who I was. So these days, I help really busy professional business women who I help them recalibrate the power source that they're using. So I help them move out of force, so forcing their businesses, forcing their purpose, forcing life, to be in the energy and the power of flow, which are two very different power sources. One of them will suck the life out of you and put you into burnout, adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue. So if anyone's listening and you've experienced that, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the other will put you into what I call dangerous levels of freedom, peace, and just complete expansion.
Yeah.
You feel in flow. And so that's who I help these days. And how did I come to get to
To
this?
get there. Yeah.
It's because that's where I was. So
Yeah.
one of the frameworks that I use to help people is it's a subconscious pattern framework that I've developed myself, because back in 2017, I uncovered my own unconscious pattern that was truly running my life on autopilot. And I was calling that version of me. I was so deeply identified with this pattern that I didn't know who I would be without it. And so the pattern and there are 8 of them. So just to give a little bit more context to that, I have since now identified 8 different patterns that each have a different pain point, a different trigger, and each trigger will set into motion a set of default behaviors that we quite often wear as a badge of honor and go, yeah, this is who I am. This is
It's like
my,
a habit. It sets
yeah,
into place a habitual. Yeah.
yeah. But we do become very identified with these behaviors, and so much so that it really is how we navigate our life. So the pattern I discovered in myself is what I call the achiever pattern. Now, a lot of business women will relate to this, but there's more than this, but it'll just help to give an indication. So it was at the end of 2017, and I became really ill, really ill. But it was on the back of what I call my year of the overachiever. And it's when I first discovered that this pattern was running my life. So at the end of every year, I would sit down and write my goal list, things that I was going to achieve. And of course, I did that at the end of 2016. But what had been happening in my life was that list had gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and more, you know, the goal buzz, the goal hit had to get bigger. So 2017 looked like this for me. And even saying it now, I just kind of go, I don't even know who would do this. But the first thing I had on it was to successfully launch a business for some entrepreneurs that had given me a business plan to build a business in a building that didn't exist. And I decided I would also have it fully profitable in 6 months for them. So that's the first thing on the list. The second thing I decided I would do was I would complete my MBA, my Master's in Business Administration, in 12 months. I don't think you can do it in 12 months now, but yep, I put that on my list as well. I'm also a bit of an adventurer, so I decided that I would trek to Everest Base Camp. Yeah, so I put that on the list as well. And then I thought, well, while I'm already, you know, training for Everest Base Camp, I may as well do an ultra trail marathon. That's a 100-kilometer trail marathon event.
Why not?
Why not? Right? So I put all that on my 2017 list of things I was going to achieve. Yeah. Like, and of course you can imagine in underneath all that are all these mini things, you know, like assignments and exams and, you know, long training runs and like there was so much in there, so much, and building marketing plans and all of that kind of thing. So it was quite a big year. Anyway, it was in November. I got back from my graduation ceremony and I became really ill. What a surprise.
Go figure.
And I found myself literally with this mystery illness. And the illness itself, I spent a night in hospital. They thought it was at one point viral meningitis. They couldn't, you know, I couldn't be in light. I couldn't move my head, my neck. I was just... And anyway, it wasn't, but I did spend about 10 days horizontal. And during that time, I became so ridiculously depressed, like depression and underwhelm and sadness and emptiness. It just overwhelmed me and consumed me. I had done enough self-development to know there was something there that I really wasn't seeing, wasn't willing to see, or just hadn't yet been able to see, perhaps a combination. And so I sat with it and I started to look at, you know, what my life had been like. And I started to ask myself this question, which is such a powerful question. So I asked myself, who would I be without? So
I'm giggling because the last interview we did, we came to the same question.
Love it. So obviously this is needed in this moment right now. So I asked myself, who would I be if I didn't set goals? And honestly, the reaction in my body, it was so deeply visceral. I thought I was going to have a heart attack at the idea of not setting goals. And so I said to myself, okay, we're going to take goals off the table in 2018. You're not going to set a single goal. And that began this unraveling of this achiever identity that I went on to really deeply cultivate a relationship with and begin to understand. And it's how I discovered through working with people that there are 7 other different patterns that are driving us and who we think we are. So how did that bring me around to feeling? Well, those patterns that we all have, they do play a role, not just the identity, but the greater role that they play is that they are keeping us from feeling something that maybe happened or that we felt when we were young kids, generally between 5 and 7. Now, I'm conscious of the time because this is, you know, pretty big.
That's a whole big topic.
That's a whole big topic on its own.
0 to 7 are imprint years for sure.
Yeah, very formative years. But almost, you know, for every one of us, what happens is we get to this point where something happens. Now, by something happens, I don't mean tragedy or trauma. It can be that, but so often certainly with the people I've worked with, it's not. It can be something much subtler and something more nuanced that happens, that has you start to make mean, when I do this, I get this. And this is often, this is love, acceptance, significance, safety, security, whatever you want to call it. Love looks a bunch of different ways when you're a little kid. You know, to an adult, we have the capacity to rationalize love in its fullness.
Absolutely.
But as a kid, you don't. You know, for a kid, it's really, this is familiar, i.e. safe, or this is unfamiliar, i.e. not safe. And
well, yeah, we're only born with two things, and that's the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. That's all we're actually born with. The rest is made up.
Right. See, I love that, Carmel. Yes.
Yeah.
So for me, when I was 5, I was at the end of grade 1, and I won a citizenship award at the end of grade 1. And I got a ton of love for that. Now, before winning the award, I was just a 5-year-old being 5 years old brilliantly.
Yeah.
I wasn't a brilliant 5-year-old. But when I won that award, a lot of two big things happened. I decided that if I won, achieved, succeeded, I would get love, because I did. I got a ton of love from my family, from the community, from the school. But it's the back of the hand decision that often goes unnoticed, and which shapes our identity. And that is, if I don't win or achieve or succeed, I won't be loved, right?
Yeah.
And that is usually the hidden pattern. So what would the feeling be if I wasn't loved? That's what the pattern springs into existence to protect you from feeling that made up feeling that probably wouldn't even happen, right?
Yeah.
Because if I didn't win or achieve, no one was not going to not love me. But as a 5-year-old, I couldn't understand that.
And I love it, because, and then we end up as adults running our life with a 5-year-old strategy. Right?
Yes.
And the decisions we make sometimes. So I'm just giggling because it's so in line with some of the stuff we were talking earlier, and the synchronicity of it all is absolutely amazing. And I love that question. Who would I be without my kids? Who would I be without my business? Who would I be without X, Y, and Z? And you're so right. Those things we make it mean, and they become a habit. Would you agree with that?
Oh,
they become
100%. You know, they're just, you know, they're unquestioned habits. You know, the beliefs that we hold. You know, X equals Y. You know, or X plus Y equals Z, or A plus B equals C.
Yeah,
we hold these beliefs, and I love this. In the middle of the word belief are the letters L-I-E, lie. Yeah. So to me, unexamined or unquestioned beliefs quite often hold a lie, or in other words, a story that we've told ourselves, and we've created it as an absolute, you know, and there are no absolutes in the entire universe.
It's actually all made up. It is 1,000,000%. When you actually do the work and you look at it, it's like you make stuff up, and people go, oh, I hate my job, I hate this. And I go, well, what else could you make it mean in this moment? Because I know when I'm sure, like yourself, we learn this stuff, and then we go in and out of work, trying to build our business. And I remember my last position actually going in with the frame of mind of, I do this just to get to there. And it made it so much easier, rather than, oh my God, they have to like me. Oh my God, I have to do it right. Because underneath the human condition, if you like, is the need for significance. Like it's it's survival. Way back in the day, if a woman didn't look a certain way or whatever, while the man was out, you know, getting the food in, if she didn't look a certain way, well, then the strongest male wouldn't want to mate with her, and her lineage would not survive. That's our base roots. And I know I'm not talking about equality or anything like that, but our base roots, that's kind of what it is down deep.
I'm 100% in agreement. It is primal, you know, these, the beliefs that we hold and call I or me, they are primal, and they're primal to survival. They are they are orchestrated by that primal need to survive. I'm constantly examining the stories that I tell myself. I'm constantly examining my beliefs, and there's I don't have a strategy for this. It's just, it's just asking myself, is this true? Is this true? Or could this be
it's
another
interesting.
way?
I would almost disagree that you don't have a strategy for everything, only because I believe we have a strategy for everything. Even down to, I did a bit of a test with it a few years ago now with some of my clients about brushing your teeth. We have a strategy of how we brush our teeth because it comes automatic. So you put the toothpaste on first, or do you put the water on first? Do you go to the left or the right of your mouth? So I think we learn unconsciously to have it. So even you questioning is a strategy within itself.
Yeah,
I
love
just
that.
take stuff. Yeah, I think, everything we do, because at the end of the day, the brain takes so much of our energy. If you look at it percentage wise, it uses much more energy than any other part of our body. So it needs to be economical. So it goes, okay, yeah, I've done that 10 times. Yeah, look, that just becomes that easy habit. And that's what I think we have habits to ourselves. We have a trigger that causes the reaction because we get something out of it, and then whether that's to be loved or whatever, and then at the other side we go, what the hell did I do that for? But it's so automatic, we don't even know we do it. We just know it's not working.
Yeah, and it was an interesting thing. I've just recently moved to Brisbane.
Yeah.
Now, this is how, and I want to share this because these beliefs, they're not always the really obvious ones. Sometimes they sit deep underneath us, and
absolutely.
we're not even aware that they're there. So for 25 years ago, I moved to the Sunshine Coast, which is about an hour north of Brisbane. And for the next 25 years, I said to myself and to anyone who wanted to hear, I would never live in Brisbane. Now, I set that in stone. I would never live in Brisbane. I would live in Sydney. I had previously. I kind of like Melbourne. I'd probably live in Melbourne. I'm from Tassie, so I'd live in Hobart.
Come to Perth.
Yeah, and I love Perth as well. I've been to Perth. Perth is beautiful. But I made this big claim unconsciously that I would never live in Brisbane. And then just about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, both my kids now live in Brisbane. They're adults, but they now live in Brisbane. But they're at a time in their life where we get to have this beautiful adult, I'm still their mum, but we have this beautiful adult relationship. And I was literally cutting off everything potentially that the universe wants for me that is here in Brisbane, but I've cut that off because I have this I'll never live in Brisbane story running. So I have no idea what I've been blocking myself from. Now, this isn't to say that you have to do the exact opposite.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah, my offering here is to consciously question it, though. Consciously examine, is this still true for me? Is this true? Or could I be like a director on a movie set and go and have a look down another camera angle and see, is there something else here for me to see that I haven't yet been able to take on?
And another good question is, when, we come up with challenges, how is this a problem for me now? Because if it's not a problem for me now, give back the monkey. I don't want the monkey, it's yours. Because we take on so many, and especially I think as moms, we take on so much of other people's and family stuff, because we try and fix it. And I had to, I guess, be confronted with myself and realize I was a control freak. Now, it came from a good place, as in trying to make my kids happy, trying to make sure they were okay, blah, blah. But if I really looked at it and examined it kind of from that umbrella position, it's like, hang on, that is an element of controlling, although it wasn't what I had in my head as controlling, if that makes sense.
Got it.
And it can be confrontational to look at yourself that way. And if things are working for you, don't look at it. It's fine.
That's right.
If something's not working, well, then maybe you need to examine and ask yourself those questions. Is this true for me right now? Or
Yeah.
how is this a problem for me right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that
Love
too.
it.
You know, and to come back around to, you know, why am I an advocate for feeling our feelings? It's because underneath the pattern that's been protecting you from feeling something that felt uncomfortable when you were a little
Uncomfortable.
kid
Yeah.
are some emotions that are wanting to be looked at, some parts of you that are wanting to be seen. And just speaking to control, I think it's Conversations with God. I think it's that, or A Course in Miracles. It may be both, where it is suggested we only have two sponsoring thoughts. That is one of control, one of fear and one of love. Now, what sits under control,
It's
if
fear.
we are willing to examine it,
Fear.
is fear.
1,000,000%.
Yeah. And so what is it that we're avoiding feeling? And again, it comes back to, what are we blocking ourselves from when we are moving from an unexamined or unquestioned, deep rooted feeling of fear? And I say unexamined and unquestioned because I love how you mentioned control, because control is one of the most incredible uh, what do you call it? Costumes, like, I say a heart masquerading, your ego masquerading in a bright red heart costume, but that's essentially what it is. It's a ruse for, but my intentions are good. I'm in control, and I've got really good intentions here. But the universe doesn't work in intentions. Well, it does, but it works more in vibration and frequency. And so what's the source? If the source is fear, then that is a vibrational frequency, is a repellent. So if business feels hard for you, it's quite likely that you're tapping into the wrong power source. So when I say I help business women to recalibrate their power source, it's to help them identify, have they unconsciously tapped into a power source that is fear-based, therefore, which is force, which is therefore repelling everything that you're trying so hard to have come to you. And then you get burnt, and then you wonder why, oh my God, I've got adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue, I'm burnt out, I'm just like, this is too hard. And you just tapped into the wrong power source.
Absolutely. And I love that. And I know I often bring up the chart with some of my clients of the Power versus Force by David Hawkins. And that chart is like, what vibrational level are you at? Well, one of the things that I studied was psychosomatic therapy.
Yes. I forgot that. Yes.
Yeah. So it's basically your body's talking to you, listening. But one of the things I did for a lot of people in business, and I do it for my clients on a regular basis now, is I do a face read.
That's right.
But I do a face split. And it's amazing. And exactly what you're saying. I can see the feminine side and the masculine side. That's what it shows. And I've come across a great, I think, phenomenon, I don't know, over the last little while is, so in our day and age, and you would get this, a lot of women are seen as being too masculine.
Yeah.
But the more and more, and I've done hundreds of these face reads, the more and more I can see it's actually not a masculine energy at all. It's an overdeveloped feminine one. And the overdeveloped feminine, and I could show you, it's literally written on their face, because when I do the split, I go, oh, there it is again. Because when you think about it, an overdeveloped feminine, what is she? She's in control.
Right.
If you think of that mother archetype, it's not done right, I might as well do myself, everything should be. And that bossiness can be mistaken for masculine energy.
Yeah.
But it's an overdeveloped feminine, which is control freak, which is underpinned by fear, because they're so afraid of letting go of control of what would happen, and maybe being overwhelmed by the feelings.
That's it.
That they have to keep the control.
Yeah, I call it all or nothing syndrome. They're trapped in all or nothing syndrome. It has to be all, or they're going to have nothing. And it's just not true. I mean, but it does come back to being able to be present with some feelings that maybe you haven't taken the time to feel. Now, there's no danger in feeling these feelings. They're a little spicy and a little uncomfortable, but they're asking to be felt. But what happens is we have this pattern that literally sits sentry on top of the trapdoor, that all the feelings are sitting underneath. And if you're not conscious of your pattern, you're not likely to be able to get to the feelings, because the pattern is the one that continually kicks up these default unconscious habits and behaviors that move us away from the feeling, sorry,
such important, that's okay, and such important work. And you're right, I am another one, and I'm not sure if you've heard of them, which really highlights this as in the different emotions that can come through as different selves. So it's Helen and Sidra Stone, when they talk about the different selves, that we all have different selves and come in. One of the things I learned as my sister passed away and my dad and things like that was to sit in the emotion that we're so scared of. As long as you look, I just kind of went, okay, make sure I can't fall off the chair, like that, I have some time. But to sit in it is so uncomfortable. It's so powerful. Oh my God. Because in the knowledge that you are safe, no matter what comes up, and yes, you will stop crying eventually. And yes, it will feel different. I'm not saying something will feel better, but it will certainly feel different. I know when my sister was at her final stages, one of the things the doctor had said to her, and we all really paid attention, was, soon you'll be somewhere else and then it'll all be okay. And I think it's the same with us as we're going. Like when you get new information, when you sit with it, when you do whatever, soon you are somewhere else. And that is all okay until it's time to be somewhere else, whether it's spiritually or actually physically. I think that's what we've done as we go through life a lot. Is to actually be somewhere else. Like I know at 18, I don't know about you, but I thought I knew everything. I was so grown up. I knew everything and nobody was going to tell me nothing.
Oh yeah.
But look at us talking away. But listen, back business-wise, because, this has brought you on this magnificent journey that now you can help other people. But I'm really curious, what is success to you?
Oh my God, that is, I almost answered that back when we were chatting, but we went off onto another subject. I have completely redefined success for me because I had a belief around it. And the more I examined it, the more I would have a new belief, and then that belief wouldn't hold true. And then I would re-examine it again. And literally I have unpacked this back. And this may not resonate with anybody, but for me now, the definition of success for me is when I breathe in and when I breathe out.
Wow,
that
I love it.
is
It's that simple.
It's that simple.
Beautiful.
And it took me a while to get to that, Carmel. I mean, the pattern in me would go, okay, now it's this. Success means
now what's next, and what's next?
And then I go, is that still true? Because that would mean that it also has to be this. And then I go, wait a second. Okay, that's, again, I've made something mean something here. Something has to happen in order for me to.
Yes, so it's conditional.
So I kept collapsing it and collapsing it and collapsing it and collapsing it. And it was only a few months ago that I love the question, that I have this new redefined belief around success. It's when I breathe in and when I breathe out.
Beautiful. I love that. What's one of the, and we've all had to do them, I know there's probably a plethora for you to choose from. What's one of the hardest things you've had to do in your business?
One of the hardest things I've had to do.
Well, hardest decisions you've had to make.
To let it all go. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
I let in 2017, after that year, I began to know stuff I couldn't unknow about myself, right. Which meant that I couldn't consciously or authentically keep being who the world thought I was and who I said I'd been.
Yes.
And the only way I knew how to get to the truth of who I am was to let go of everything that I was not. So at the beginning of 2018, I let go of everything. I let go of my job. I let go of my home. I'm not suggesting everyone has to do this, but this was the journey that Source took me on.
Yeah.
And it was that collapsing of all my beliefs. You know, I'm not my job. I'm not my house. I'm not my car. I'm not my social media following. I'm not my bank account. I'm none of that, you know, and I let it all go so that I would know that nothing is the source of me. I'm the source of everything.
Beautiful.
So whether I have a million Instagram I don't, but whether I have a million Instagram followers or no followers, the truth of me is still
there,
still here. Whether I have $1 million in the bank or no money in the bank, the truth of me is still here. And that's my power, and that's my value, and that's my gift, and that's why I'm here on this planet. It's got nothing to do with what I have or don't have, or what, you know, what I do or don't do. It's just, it's here. It's the truth of me. And it makes my yeses and my nos so simple. You know, I don't, when I'm making decisions now, the only question is, does this excite and expand me in some way? Does this actually feel, you know, really exciting? Does my soul go, yes?
Yes.
You know, I don't know why I'm moving in this direction, but I'm moving in this direction.
Yeah.
And just living in this trust of that. And if you're a control freak, that's going to be really far. I was a control freak. Believe me, I was you ask my children, I was the biggest control freak going around, you know, but you know, it didn't just happen overnight, but slowly learning to trust again, and learning to trust myself, and trust this knows for you, you know, and you don't have
being able to tap into that, isn't it? That's the skill.
You don't have to do anything the way everyone, you know what, there's this organization out there called They, THEY. And they tell you lots of stuff. They say this and they say that and they do this and they do that. I would love to meet this organization called They. But I was a loyal follower of They for a huge part of my life. And, you know, I'm obviously being silly, but, you know, they don't know what is in your expansion. Only you know what's in your expansion. And
that's a skill itself, though, to be able to tap into that, because sometimes we sit and tap into stuff and go, oh no, I'm going to do it anyway. And it's like that, as I mentioned earlier, those different selves. It's, you know, the ego gets a bad rap as far as I'm concerned. The ego has a job description. And the only job description the ego has is to keep you safe. But the ego is like the CEO of all the other selves. So it can go, hey, procrastination, come in here. Distract her over there a little bit so we can keep her safe from this. Or maybe that's just my illusion. I have great little conversations in my head.
You and I are so similar. And I'm in full agreement about that as well. You know, I think the ego gets a terribly bad rap, but the ego to me is like an unruly child. If you are not giving, it needs direction, it needs instruction, it needs your input.
Well, I think each self has its own KPI, its own job description, its own everything. And I think quite often we're not taught in general terms how to develop our entrepreneurial self, for example, or how to develop our opportunity self. So I've done some work around developing those selves, because those selves just lie there kind of asleep. We have disowned selves, which is like going with what you've said, the feelings. The disowned selves are the ones that are spitting the dummy out the back because you somehow push them away. And they're trying to go, excuse me, I want some attention over here. And that's how it comes up. And look, again, we make stuff mean whatever. if me thinking that it's all different cells running around in my, I use the metaphor of a choir. That we have all of these voices. They don't all need to sing at the same time. But boy, God, when we need clout, they can do. But they all have their individual role in the choir, and the ego is like the conductor.
Yeah, I have a acronym for self, SELF. So
okay,
to me, it collapses into 4 voices. So soul, ego, love, or your heart space, and fear. And
okay, I like that.
they are the voices of being human. Now, if you go to a dinner party and you've got a couple of real loud talkers, what happens when you ignore loud talkers? What do?
Get louder, usually.
Right. That's ego and fear. Yeah. They're our loud talkers. Now, what happens if you go to a dinner party and there are a couple of soft talkers? What happens if you ignore soft talkers?
They just shut up.
Right. That's our soul and our love. So what I like to think of and some of the work I do is it's like an equalizer, the bass and the treble, we need to hear all 4 of those attributes have something to tell us and something and a role to play. Our ego makes sure that we don't go out without our pants on, for goodness sake, and fear makes sure we don't put our hand in a fire, and and our soul makes sure that we stay connected to things like sunrises and nature, and love is about connection and belonging. They all have a role to play, but it's just bringing their voices into this beautiful harmonic balance. And that means that we have to listen to our soul, listen to our ego, listen to love, listen to fear, and then and then move from that balanced harmony. Make your self lead from there.
So tell me, what is it that you have as success habits now? So you've said that to recalibrate yourself, and I'm sure there's ways of doing that. So what kind of success habits have you made that ensures you are there? Because look, we all know you have kids as well. Life happens, stuff happens around you sometimes and knocks you off kilter. So what habits do you do on a regular basis to keep you in that balance?
So I've had for over well over 2.5 years now, I have what I call a stillness practice. So I sit in silence, stillness, for an hour a day, every day. And it's just non-negotiable. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm this perfect human. I am not. I'm human first, enlightened second. Some days I only do get a half an hour in. My commitment is to get an hour in. Sometimes I will sit for 3 hours, if I'm feeling really like I'm being pulled into, into the 3D world or the storm, and I want to pull the storm into my peace. Sometimes I'll sit for 3 hours, and just sit in stillness. And all that means is, there's nothing fancy. There's no fancy meditation cushions. You can, sometimes I sit on my bed, sometimes I sit on the lounge, but I just sit up and I just put my hands in my lap. I close my eyes, and it's like going to the movie of me. And I just watch and listen and become the observer. I take time out of myself and become the observer of my thinking, and the observer of my thoughts, and the observer of my emotions and feelings, and become the third party of me for, an hour a day. Not always. Some days I don't get an hour in, some days I get more in, but that practice is a non-negotiable for me. And it has been for 2.5 years. That is definitely succeed. And
being the observer is very, very powerful place.
So powerful. I love it. And I think that's one of the, if I was going to offer a first step, it would be to begin to be in the practice of self-observing. And how do you do that? Well, it can be quite simple. Just 2 or 3 times a day, spend 2 or 3 minutes noticing your thoughts. If you're standing making coffee, What?
I always have this written here.
Yeah.
Because the moment you actually say, am I conscious? You're conscious in that moment.
You go, okay. Yeah.
And when you can say, am I conscious? It's bringing a conscious awareness to where you are at.
Yeah.
And some deep breathing sometimes, or just standing still. And
Yeah.
the more, this I have to practice a bit more myself, the more you're attached to this, the more you need to sit still and put it away.
Yeah. The 3Ds of our patterns, distraction, deflection, denial. They are the three tools of choice of our patterns to stop us feeling. We distract, we deflect, and we deny. We don't, but our pattern does. You know, it's like having this, you know, superhero that stands. It's like Casper the Ghost. This is how I imagine it. So there's you, the fleshy truth of you. Then there's this Casper the Ghost version of you that is out there going, nope, we're not feeling this. Nope, that's not happening. Nope, that's not, no, you know, and just distracting, deflecting, denying anything that might bring those feelings up that really are just wanting to be felt. So then now consider there is 8 billion-ish patterns out there communicating with patterns. It's no wonder we don't hear each other. It's no wonder that we are in a war to the death to be right, because it's just one pattern arguing with another pattern.
Well, and even more than that, there's, you know, I've studied some of spiral dynamics. So there's the 7 known thinking systems. And as a general thinking system at the moment, we live in what's called a blue V meme, which is very much about good, right, bad. No, good, bad, right, wrong. Carmel, say it slowly. And it's because people have a belief of who they are and their patterns and their identity. And if yours is different, it has to be wrong. Otherwise, they don't feel safe.
Yeah.
So it's quite an awesome observation to be able to make, to see how that goes. It's fascinating. We could talk all day, but anyway,
we could. That is another success strategy that I guess that I do unconsciously as well. Is I practice daily to dissolve categories, dissolve boxes, live in the ability to hold 2 truths or multiple truths. You know, I can hold my truth, and I can also make space for someone else's truth. And
understand that it is just their truth.
Yeah.
That's okay. If I've walked a mile in your shoes, my truth might be the same as yours is. So tell me one last question.
Yes.
If you could start over again, what would you do differently?
I would spend time in stillness. I would have started that a long time ago. You know, we all will quite willingly go to work for 8 hours a day, but I imagine a world where we flip that and actually sat in stillness for 8 hours a day. We would probably only need to be productive for 1 hour a day, because we would be so conscious in our doing.
That's
so it would be that I would do that. I don't feel like I have any anything that I would do differently, really, because everything has brought me to where I am. And I know that's a pretty cheesy cliche thing to say, but you know, I like to think of my life as like, you know, the centric rings on a tree. You know, so every time I have some growth or expansion, there's this new ring, but that ring holds all those other rings that also make me. So you know, I probably, the only thing I would do would have been listened when people spoke of meditation back when I was that 18-year-old. I thought I knew everything.
I think there's the illusion that meditation has to be and it's just so not that. It's being totally present right now and being still. Love it.
You can do it walking. You know, sometimes I'm out walking and I'll just you know, I'll just be conscious by naming things, you know, which is just a sensory way of being really still and in the moment. And, you know, just, you know, name things as you see them as you're walking along. You know, that still has you walking and stepping in this moment right now. And it allows anything that wants to be there with you in that moment to be there as well. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So tell me, Jennifer, if anyone does want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Look, I'm very transparent and available on social media, so you can definitely find me on social media. My website, which is all the W's, myname.com. But I can pop my Linktree link, which is probably,
sure,
you know, because every different strokes for different folks. Some people want, you know, to connect with you in a bunch of different ways. So I'll
sure, that would be
in.
awesome. You put that
Yeah.
in the comments.
Yeah, and
terrific.
people can cherry pick the bit that they are interested in.
Awesome. Jennifer, I just wanted to say, look at us, we're 45 minutes in. I know we could talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles, is what I say about myself. But I wanted to say a huge thank you for coming on. It was lovely to be able to unpack a little bit. And I know every time we tell bits of our story, lots of our story, the person that's meant to hear it is going to hear it. That's going to resonate with and help them. And I'm all about, you know, all collaborating and working together. Why are we all trying to put each other down or be in competition? Let's all work together. I know the members in our group are, you know, starting to really kick some awesome goals because we're all working together and helping each other with our knowledge. Yeah. So I truly am so grateful for you being on the call. And it sounds really weird in the sunny weather, even though I've been here for years, to say Merry Christmas.
I
know. But I hope you truly have an awesome Christmas,
and to you.
2021 is your year.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful that that our paths crossed the way they did, and that the universe insisted that we come together in this other group in a much more, I don't know, in just a different way, you know, a beautiful serving way. And I love that so much. And I love that I get to be connected with you and be part of that rising tide that lifts all ships. I love that so much because that's lifting, that's the level of consciousness, isn't it? That's being exactly a part of that is, it's a fun ride.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's been awesome to have you here, and it's bye for me.